I know you've been afraid that you're taking too long to heal, too long to understand, too long to change, too long to become what you think you should already be. I want you to hear this before anything else. I am not rushing you. You don't need to move faster for me. You don't need to figure things out sooner. You don't need to be further along than you are right now. I am patient with you. I see how often you measure yourself against time, against expectations, against who you thought you would be by now. I see the quiet shame that whispers you're behind, that you should be doing better, that you're taking up too much space by still struggling. You are not too slow for me. I am not tapping my foot. I am not watching the clock. I am not waiting for you to catch up. I am here with you exactly where you are. You don't need to apologize for how long this is taking. You don't need to explain why you're still tired, still unsure, still learning how to stand. Nothing about your pace disappoints me. I know you've been trying to hurry yourself, pushing, correcting, pressuring because you're afraid that patience will run out. It will not. I am patient with you in your questions, patient with you in your uncertainty, patient with you in your slow becoming. You don't need to arrive anywhere tonight. You don't need to make progress before you rest. You don't need to prove that you're trying hard enough. You are already allowed to be here. I am not ahead of you calling you forward. I am beside you walking at your pace. You can stay. You can breathe. You can stop hurrying yourself for a moment. I am patient with you. You have been carrying the feeling that you are behind where you should be, behind who you should be by now. And even when no one has said it out loud, that feeling has followed you, quietly reminding you of everything that still isn't finished. I see how heavy that has been. You don't need to hurry for me. I know you've been trying to move yourself along, trying to push past confusion, trying to close chapters before they're ready, trying to become steadier, stronger, clearer, because you're afraid that staying where you are too long means you're failing. You are not failing. Taking time does not mean you are doing something wrong. Moving slowly does not mean you lack desire or effort. Sometimes it simply means you are human, and what you are carrying is tender. I am patient with you in this tenderness. I know how often you replay where you think you should be by now, how you compare your pace to others, how you quietly worry that your slowness is wasting something. Time, opportunity, grace. Nothing is being wasted. I am not frustrated by how long it's taking. I am not disappointed that you haven't arrived yet. I am not growing tired of waiting for you to change. I am here with you now. You don't need to speed yourself up to stay close to me. You don't need to force progress to earn patience. You don't need to punish yourself for still being in process. You are allowed to be unfinished. I know you've learned to associate patience with tolerance, like it might run out if you take too long. Like care is something that must be earned by improvement. That is not how I am with you. My patience is not thin. It is not conditional. It does not expire. I am not standing at a distance, checking to see if you finally get it right. I am sitting with you in the middle of what's unclear, unhealed, and unresolved. I am not in a hurry to move you along. I know there are moments when you feel embarrassed by how slow this feels. When you tell yourself you should be past this by now. When you feel exposed for still needing time. You don't need to be ashamed here. Needing time is not a flaw. It is not evidence of weakness. It is not something you need to hide. I am gentle with your pace. You don't need to catch up tonight. You don't need to make sense of everything before you rest. You don't need to push yourself to understand or improve. You are allowed to stay where you are. I am not measuring your growth by speed. I am not tracking your progress with impatience. I am not waiting for a version of you that moves faster. I am with this version of you, the one who is tired, the one who is unsure, the one who is still learning how to stand. You are not late to your own life. I know you fear that if you don't hurry, you'll miss something important, that the world will move on without you. that you'll fall too far behind to catch up. You don't need to live in that fear tonight. Nothing meant for you is passing you by because you are slow. Nothing true is slipping away because you are taking time. I am patient with you, not because you are almost there, but because I am not rushing where you are. You don't need to apologize for still being here. You don't need to explain why you haven't moved on. You don't need to promise that you'll do better tomorrow. You are already allowed to rest. You don't need to make progress to be held. You don't need to improve to be near. You don't need to change to stay. I am patient with you in your becoming. You can let that patience surround you for a moment. You don't need to respond to it. You don't need to use it to motivate yourself. You can simply let it be. I am not going anywhere, and I am not in a hurry. I know you worry because it feels like you're back here again. The same thoughts, the same feelings, the same questions that never seem to fully leave. You've wondered if that means you're not learning, if it means you're not changing, if it means something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. I am not surprised when you return to familiar struggles. I am not frustrated by the repetition. I am not keeping count of how many times you've needed the same patience. I am patient with you every time. You don't wear out my care by needing it again. You don't exhaust my presence by circling the same places. You don't test my patience by being human in the same ways more than once. I am not standing here asking, "Why are you still here?" I am sitting with you saying, "I'm still with you." I know you've told yourself you should have learned this by now, that you should be stronger by now, that you shouldn't still be struggling with the same things. You don't need to shame yourself for still being tender. Healing is not a straight line. Understanding does not arrive all at once. Growth often looks like returning, gently, slowly, until something finally feels safe enough to soften. I am patient with that process. I am not asking you to stop struggling. I am not asking you to figure it out this time. I am not waiting for you to finally get it right so I can relax. I am already at rest with you. You don't need to promise that this will be the last time. You don't need to convince yourself that next time will be different. You don't need to pressure yourself into progress. You are allowed to need patience again. I know how discouraging it feels to wake up and realize you're still here, still tired, still unsure, still working through things you thought would be finished by now. You are not disappointing me. I am not thinking less of you because the road feels familiar. I am not losing hope in you because the pace is slow. I am not withdrawing because you haven't moved on yet. I am steady with you. I see every small effort you don't give yourself credit for. Every quiet choice to keep going. Every moment you stayed when it would have been easier to disappear. Those things matter even when you return to the same place again. I am patient with your learning, patient with your remembering, patient with your forgetting and learning again. You don't need to rush yourself out of this moment. You don't need to turn patience into pressure. You don't need to use my gentleness as a reason to push harder. You can simply receive it. I am not tired of walking this with you. I am not weary of meeting you here. I am not looking for an exit from your story. I am here again just as calmly as before. You don't need to apologize for needing time. You don't need to apologize for needing reassurance. You don't need to apologize for still being in process. I am patient with you, not because you're almost done, but because you are worth staying with. You can rest in that patience for a while. You don't need to do anything with it. You don't need to turn it into motivation. You can simply let it hold you. I know there are moments when you don't even know what you're waiting for, when nothing feels clear enough to move toward, and nothing feels settled enough to leave behind. That kind of not knowing can feel uncomfortable, exposing, like you're standing still without a reason. I am patient with you there too. You don't need to understand yourself for me to stay. You don't need to have language for what you're feeling. You don't need to identify what's wrong before you're allowed to rest. I am not confused by your confusion. I know how often you tell yourself you should be able to explain this by now, that you should have insight, direction, clarity, that not knowing makes you feel unprepared or behind. You are not behind for not knowing. There is nothing wrong with being in between understanding, nothing unsafe about being unsure, nothing disappointing about still asking quiet questions you don't have answers to yet. I am patient with your questions, even the ones you don't know how to ask. You don't need to push yourself toward certainty. You don't need to rush clarity into place. You don't need to force meaning out of what hasn't settled yet. You are allowed to pause inside the unknown. I am not waiting for you to figure it out so I can stay close. I am not hovering at a distance until things make sense. I am here with you in the middle of what feels unclear. You don't need to defend your confusion. You don't need to justify why things still feel tangled. You don't need to explain why understanding hasn't arrived yet. You are not wasting time by not knowing. Some things take time to unfold, not because you are slow, but because they are gentle, and gentleness cannot be rushed. I am patient with that gentleness. I know how easily uncertainty turns into self-criticism, how quickly you begin to wonder if something is wrong with you for not seeing the path yet. Nothing is wrong with you. You don't need to be certain to be held. You don't need clarity to be near. You don't need answers to stay. I am not unsettled by your questions. I am not anxious about your lack of direction. I am not worried because you don't know what comes next. I am calm with you. You can let yourself stop searching for understanding right now. You can let the questions rest without answers. You can allow the fog to remain for a while. I am not leaving you there alone. You don't need to turn this moment into progress. You don't need to extract a lesson. You don't need to come away with something resolved. You are allowed to simply be here. I am patient with the parts of you that are still forming, patient with the thoughts that haven't settled, patient with the feelings that don't yet have shape. You don't need to hurry yourself out of uncertainty. I am not in a hurry with you. I know there are days when you don't move forward at all, days when nothing shifts, nothing resolves, nothing improves. Days when simply getting through feels like the most you can do. I am patient with you on those days too. You are not failing me when you are tired. You are not disappointing me when you have nothing left to give. You are not falling behind because you are moving slowly or not at all. Some days are not for progress. Some days are only for staying alive. And that is enough. I know you've learned to value yourself by productivity, by effort, by movement, by evidence that you're trying. When those things disappear, you begin to question your worth. You don't need to question it here. I am not measuring you by output. I am not watching to see how much you accomplish. I am not keeping track of your usefulness. I am simply with you. You don't need to justify your stillness. You don't need to explain why today feels empty. You don't need to promise that tomorrow will be better. I am patient with your quiet days. I know how quickly you judge yourself for them, how you call them wasted, how you replay them as proof that you're not doing enough, not becoming enough, not trying hard enough. I do not see them that way. I see how much it takes for you to keep breathing when everything feels heavy. I see the strength it takes to stay when leaving would feel easier. That matters even when nothing else happens. You don't need to turn your exhaustion into effort. You don't need to squeeze meaning out of survival. You don't need to transform rest into progress. You are allowed to simply rest. I am not bored with your stillness. I am not impatient with your slowness. I am not irritated by your lack of momentum. I am calm with you. You don't need to wake up motivated. You don't need to feel hopeful. You don't need to want anything different than what is right now. You are allowed to just be here. I am patient with the days you can't pray, patient with the days you can't think clearly, patient with the days you feel numb, flat, or empty. Nothing about those days pushes me away. I am not stepping back while you rest. I am not waiting for you to start moving again before I stay close. I am near even when you are still. You don't need to apologize for your limits. You don't need to explain why you're worn down. You don't need to feel guilty for needing rest. Your rest does not burden me. You are not asking too much by needing nothing at all. I am patient with your quiet existence, patient with your small breaths, patient with the way you are simply here moment by moment. You don't need to turn this night into anything meaningful. You don't need to come away changed. You are allowed to let this be just a pause. I am not leaving while you pause. I am patient with you. You do not need to stay awake with these words. You do not need to remember them. You do not need to hold on to anything. Everything that needed to be said has already reached you. I am here with you. Nothing has gone wrong because you took your time. Nothing has been delayed beyond repair. Nothing has slipped away because you moved slowly or not at all. You are still exactly where you need to be. You do not need to gather yourself before you rest. You do not need to pull the pieces together. You do not need to be more settled, more peaceful, or more certain. You are allowed to sleep unfinished. I am patient with what is still forming in you, patient with what is still tender, patient with what has not yet found its shape. There is no rush in this moment. You do not need to prepare for tomorrow. You do not need to plan your next step. You do not need to promise yourself that you will do better soon. Tonight is not asking anything from you. You can let your thoughts soften. You can let them fade or wander. You do not need to follow them or quiet them. I am watching over you. You are not being timed. You are not being evaluated. You are not being compared. You are being held. Even now, even as you rest, even as you sleep, you can let go of the pressure to move. You can let go of the need to understand. You can let go of the fear that patience might run out. It will not. I am here in the quiet. I am here in the stillness. I am here while you rest. You are not alone in this night. You can sleep now, and you will still be held. I am patient with you.